More dire warnings today. This one from our former Chief of Army, that our Defence Force simply isn't up to the challenges we're likely to face in the future. But first, I want to return to the decision yesterday to appoint former ACTU Chief, former Labor Climate Change Minister Greg Combet as head of Australia's $200 billion future fund. Already plenty of concerns are mounting that Combet's left-wing ideology will risk the fund. It'll make it invest in Labor's pet projects, particularly climate change investments, over investments that might yield, for taxpayers, better returns. David Murray, who chaired the board for 6 years, is already sounding the alarm. He says Combet has been a cheerleader for this so-called nation-building stuff. I think the risks here are substantial. Substantial, says Murray. He's a hard left player, Combet. For more on this and other things, I'm joined now by former Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson. Well, John, welcome. You, of course, were in office in the Howard government era when the Future Fund was created out of surpluses. I say this to my viewers, remember them. We actually invested money that we had in surplus to shore up pensions into the future and take that weight from taxpayers. But it was always meant to be a national sovereign fund, not a political war chest.
This is critically important. I believe that Peter Costello deserves a great deal of credit for identifying the way to set up an Australian sovereign wealth fund, an asset for all Australians. It was, in a way, an asset for asset swap, of course, because we invested wisely the proceeds of asset sales. It's now grown massively and is very valuable as an asset for the Australian people and taxpayers. It's critically important, in my view, that it be conservatively but soundly managed to create more wealth for the Australian people. Governments of the day can pursue their programs, social and economic, because they're accountable to the people on regular election cycles. So Mr. Combet, and we will take, I think, as a granted that at this stage we have more reason to believe that his word might be his bond, than the government that has appointed him should immediately make it clear that he understands the difference between building it as a wealth fund, carefully and conservatively managed, and using it inappropriately for government programs, social or economic, which should be undertaken by the government of the day with taxpayers' funds so that taxpayers can rule regularly on whether that was appropriate or not.
Look, another area I want to get your take on, and this is childcare, and it's, I think, of concern to taxpayers. It's not just when you've got kids in childcare. I think right across the board, we're seeing childcare loom to be an enormous money pit, both for parents. Some are paying $23,000 a year. Now, that's on par with some private schools. But also for taxpayers, we're spending some $13 billion a year subsidising childcare. Parents are still paying out of their pocket. We know most of these childcare centres are now for profit. They've got us over a barrel. There's a report out today from the ACCC saying we've got to tip more money into childcare. But how about we have a proper fair income discussion in this country? Rather than tip more money into childcare, how about we give parents some choices? How many parents out there, John, might say, geez, if I could have that $23,000 in my pocket, my wife or me, well, we mightn't go to work. One of us might stay home and raise our kids before they go to primary school. But you're almost forced, if you want government support, into the childcare system. And there's no support if you want to stay at home, one or either parent.
Well, what you say is music to my ears, because I 100% agree with what you've just said. There are several points that I would make. The first is that this is costing us a fortune that might be better deployed otherwise, because I don't think childcare is an economic management the way it's now pumped up to be. I don't think it's having the effect on labour market participation that the money we're spending on it would suggest that it is. That's point one. Point two is we need as a people to be absolutely honest. There's no greater asset, social or economic, than our children, and raising them up to be effective citizens and workers. I almost hesitate to say this because I know it's not popular, but we know that not only do many mothers, the statistics are very clear, despite what some people would have you believe, would prefer to do things differently, choice, as you put it. We also know, Steve Biddulph was brave enough to say this, that we really need to be concerned about the impact on very early children's development, about excessive amounts of childcare. There's no other way of putting it. I mean, facts are facts. We need to have an honest debate about this. Are we paying too much of a price? Are families paying too much of a price? And again, given that I don't believe this can be narrowly painted as an economic issue anymore, more money on childcare really amounts to social policy as much as economic policy. I stand to be corrected, but that is my clear understanding.
No, I agree with you.
We need an open and honest debate, and choice for parents, particularly in those early years, ought to be something we're really elevating.
And look at the drivers. We've got some evidence now, very clear, about huge suicide rates for our young people, very different than what they were generations ago. An explosion in mental health. Yes, we might have better diagnoses and people are more comfortable talking about mental health. But I think some of the things we do when kids are young, some of the things we impose financially burdens on families, I don't think we're thinking some of this stuff through. I think we have to have an honest debate. It's not a gendered debate. I agree with you, John. It's about giving families fair choices that they make that, you know, might suit them with child one, may not suit them with child two, but giving families autonomy, because after all, that $13 billion is the taxes from families that we're recycling mainly now to union-dominated childcare centres.
There are plenty of experts right across the Western world starting to say we really need to re-examine this. We need to be honest about what's in the best interest of our children. We don't have enough of them for a start. Australia will move into the rapid depopulation bomb category of nations in the next 10 to 15 years. I don't know how many of our viewers know that, but it's true. And of those we are having, the mental and social issues are enormous. We need to be asking ourselves, are we committed to our convenience or the best interest of our children? I think it's probably fair to say that you and I and many of our listeners, we know that when we came into the world, people made massive and difficult adjustments for us. I wonder whether we have that same willingness to devote ourselves to our children and their well-being. I know these are prickly subjects, but for the sake of the children, can I say, we've got to have that debate. And we need to be honest about it.
We do, John.
We need to recognise that we're
going to have a lot of tough conversations.
Particularly worried about it.
Right, I'll leave it there. We'll come back to that next week. John Anderson, thank you.